Good evening from the Qtv newsroom at Caraba Avenue. I am Maria Mustane and thanks for joining us. First, the main local, international and sports news headlines. Top officials from many of Gambia's political parties are in Abuja, Nigeria, at the invitation of former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan. They are continuing efforts to revive the rejected draft constitution. Armed robbers allegedly made off with about $6.5 million following a raid on staff of a bureau de change. A newborn baby has been found abandoned in a cassava farm. A sustainable waste management project costing over $42 million has been launched and aimed to address the long-term problems of the Bakota dump site. In international news, American President Joe Biden bemoans a grim milestone as the country registers 500,000 COVID-19 related deaths. The runner-up for Niger's presidential election, which will herald the country's first peaceful transfer of power, has been marred by violence. In sports news, at the Under-20 AFCON in Mauritania, Gambians' young Scorpions are victorious against Ghana to make it through to the knockout stages. Those were our main headlines. Now the local news in detail. Stay with us. At the request of the Goodluck Jonathan Foundation, the designated mediator, some Gambian political party leaders are in Abuja, Nigeria, for continuation of talks on the rejected draft constitution, which had started in the Gambia. Aliusisa reports.
With the exception of the PDOIS party, the majority of the remaining political parties are currently represented by either their party leaders or an executive member in Abuja, Nigeria, for a continuation of talks to reach a consensus on the rejected draft. The effort is spearheaded by former Nigerian President and mediation chief Goodluck Jonathan through his Goodluck Jonathan Foundation. According to media reports, among those attending the meeting are Hamad Nkeba, leader of the National Reconciliation Party, Usainu Dabo, leader of the UDP, Mama Kande of GDC, Dr. Ismaila Sise of Citizens Alliance, Mai Ahmed Fati of GMC, and Sidi Njai of NPP. Also set up in attendance is John Charles Njai of Tango. In September last year, a promulgation bill to repeal the Gambia's 1997 constitution was rejected by the National Assembly. The new constitution was expected to usher in significant changes such as term limits and limitation of executive powers, among others. It was therefore a matter of national interest as the present government came into power in 2017 with a promise to change what many refer to as Jammeh's constitution. If all had gone as planned, Gambians would have gone to a referendum this year to either vote yes or no on a new constitution. However, Gambians weren't given that opportunity as it was killed at the second reading stage after 23 lawmakers, most of whom are said to be close to President Barrow, voted against it. Among their reservations which came up in the debate were the retroactive provision on term limits for the presidency. Many Gambians, both at home and abroad, and civil society organizations expressed disappointment with the lawmakers for rejecting the draft, on which millions of dollars had been spent. There are others who hailed and applauded MPs that voted against it. A once hopeful process turned out to be a disappointment for many only Gambians, but seemingly even more so for many of the country's development partners. This raises the questions as to what the next step will be. A month later, the executive, during a cabinet meeting, tasked Justice Minister Dauda Jallow to initiate national dialogue among stakeholders on the rejected constitution with a view to reaching a consensus. Goodluck Jonathan, a former Nigerian president, was tasked to spearhead this national dialogue process. Thus far, he has made 2 visits to the Gambia and met with various stakeholders, including President Barrow, on the issue. However, many, including the absentee PDOIS party, have not welcomed the move, describing the constitutional issue as a national issue that could only be resolved at the National Assembly by rescinding its decision. They see any other intervention as unwanted interference in Gambia's internal affairs. Whether or not this process will yield any positive results, there appears little hope for a new constitution before the next presidential election scheduled for December. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Aliusisa.
On Saturday, 3 staff members of AMM Financial Services and Bureau de Change were allegedly attacked by armed men in Sukuta, who allegedly fled with $6.5 million and laptops. The company's head of admin, Mamadou Lamin Saho, Tuesday told QTV they believe that someone within the company must be complicit in the incident. And Sumana Esonyasi reports.
The incident is said to have taken place in Sukuta, near the home of the elder brother of the CEO of AMM Financial Service and Bureau de Change. 3 of the company's staff, Mohamed Ajibu Jallo, head of operations, and Mamadou Aliou Jallo and Amadou Mukhtar Jallo, both cashiers, were in the vehicle when they were allegedly attacked by 7 armed men. Explaining the incident to QTV, Mamadou Lamin Saho, head of admin at AMM Financial Services, says the armed robbers shot at the vehicle after the 3 men on board refused to cooperate with them. They were severely beaten, with the operations manager sustaining injuries to his head. The attackers, he adds, allegedly fled with $6.5 million and laptops, all belonging to the company.
No, it's not always. He was dropping them off. From there he was going to turn to where he resides in Manjai. So, but it seems, it was a planned thing, because the way it happened, this thing was being monitored, maybe our in and outs were being monitored until they get a full clue of, that there is money with them. So, because it's not always, but most of the time that is what happens during weekend, because it's where these 2 cashiers stays. So money for the outlets that should work on the Sundays, because normally we operate on Sundays. So this is where cash is taking to for those coming on Sundays to be credited.
The police have already launched an investigation into the matter. However, Saho says he believes someone within the company must be complicit in the incident.
Not an insider, but they must have been tipped from outside, somebody who definitely knows how we operate.
AMM Financial Services has about 50 branches across the country with over 100 staff. An official said this is the first time that such an incident has happened. The loss is colossal, as Saho says the attackers got away with nearly all of the company's capital. Meanwhile, he has called on government to strengthen security in the country and urged anyone who may have information about the attackers to contact the police. This incident comes at a time when the crime rate is said to be surging in the country. Even if there are no statistics to support these claims, their constant reputation is stoking fear among many. Unlike Saho, many social media have called on government to accelerate its security sector reform process in order to help minimize crime in the country. Answani Soynyasi for Qtv News.
The birth of a new baby is usually a moment of excitement, especially for the parents. However, something prompted the abandonment of a baby boy in a cassava plantation in Sinchusori. Our reporter Lolly M. Kamara visited the scene of the incident and now reports.
A baby boy was abandoned in a cassava plantation. Mohamed Matar Sise, who lives nearby and found the baby early hours of Friday morning, explains to us how this came to be.
Bisi ajuma si fajar bi buma hewo si fajar bi pour wara dem julli ji si jaka ji mangi won si yon don di dox pour wara dem.
It happened in the early hours on a Friday when I was on my way going to pray Fajr. As I came to the Johnson, I heard what I thought was the cry of a baby. I stood for a moment to listen keenly and make sure just to confirm. But for a minute, the baby stopped crying. I thought I must have been mistaken and went ahead to the masjid to pray. But I was in a rush to return to the spot as it was still on my mind. As I stood at the same spot, again, I heard the baby cry. Then I jumped onto and over the fence to see where the sound came from. But as it was still dark outside, I had to use my mobile torch. As I kept searching, I was shocked to the little baby boy laid on his back naked, with ants crawling all around his body, and he was struggling with both legs and hands stretching upwards. As the struggle continued, I then managed to pick him up. As I did so, I was thinking of how to get back over the fence as the gate to the farm was locked, and I was still worried as to how to get out and save the baby.
Mr. Sise further stated that he tried all he could to save the baby and take him out from that farm. At the time, his umbilical cord was still attached and there were bloodstains all around his body. He told us what he did next.
man kenn rek la te léegi fu mu toll nii after suma benn waay la dëkkandoor leen moom mu ngi amee jabar ma gis condition yi liir bi ma gis ne mu ngi soona trop sax soona na trop te dafa soxla ndimbal time boobu noonu.
The compound I live in, I am alone and not married yet. So I went to my friend's house to seek for help because seeing the condition of the child, it was obvious he needs urgent help. So I decided to knock on his door as he is married. Eventually, I got him on the phone after discussions with him, his wife and his mother-in-law. The mother-in-law advised that we should report the matter to the police, and it was my friend's mother-in-law who took the baby to the Wellingara police station.
The Wellingara police station visited the scene where the child was found, took pictures of the baby, and Mohammed Matar Sisi was also invited to the Wellingara police station to give a statement. The baby was then taken to Fajikunda Hospital for a proper check and was later referred to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital in Banjul, where he is currently under observation. According to the police PRO, they are aware of the incident and the investigation is ongoing. In addition to the investigation, there are concerns for the health of the mother, who may be in need of urgent medical care for Mohammed Matar Sisi, who found the child. He says he is willing to adopt the child. For QTV News, Lolly M. Kamara.
We will take a commercial break. Still to come, we have some more local business, international, and sports news. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is Qtv News. Greenhouse gases from various sources contribute to global warming and climate change. A forum to brainstorm on lessening carbon emissions through the Gambia's nationally determined contribution is currently underway. Gina Basanko tells us more.
In 2015, 196 parties signed the Paris Agreement to transform their development trajectories. Through the Paris Agreement, parties also agreed to a long-term goal to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change and foster climate resilience and low greenhouse gas emissions development without threatening food production. NDCs embody efforts by each country to reduce national emissions and adapt to the impacts of climate change, and countries are required to update it every 5 years.
It is intended now to revise and update. It means to add other sectors or gases that we are not included in the first one, and also revise or update our ambition. That's our targets. Hopefully, maybe we will looking at beyond 2030, maybe to 2035, and also above 45, maybe 45 point something, or at least you maintain the same position. The condition is that you should not retract.
A cost-benefit analysis of priority intervention was conducted under the Gambia's NDC update. Few gaps were identified, which now require long-term development planning to solve.
The gaps that were recognized are those activities that contribute heavily to emissions. For example, in agriculture, we know that rice cultivation contributes a lot to methane emissions, and so we have come up with measures how to lower emissions, and a couple of measures have been outlined in this NDC gap analysis, and that is to utilize the NERICA rice technology.
Companies and investors have a huge role to play in the fight to lessen carbon emissions. proper environmental impact assessments are necessary to avoid huge carbon emissions. Researchers say a solution to lowering carbon footprints is seen as the introduction of a carbon tax that makes companies pay for emissions above a certain threshold. They would therefore have a choice of a large increase in cost, harming their profitability and long-term viability, or cutting carbon to avoid the tax.
With regards to investments, I think this is two-pronged. But very often I think government must take its responsibility more seriously. I have to say, in this case, they are not the ones that are doing what they're supposed to do. Because normally with almost all investments, you will require an EPA. Now, how many times, or EA, environmental impact assessment, should I say, assessment, how often do we actually ensure that these businesses do? But secondly, when they grant the licenses, etc., how do they ensure that these are also put in place?
We engaged the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Water Resources in relation to the Rosewood saga. EIA's report on Rosewood alleged that top government officials at the Ministry of Environment have been undermining the ban on the importation of rosewood.
The ministry is in no way encouraging. In fact, the ministry has taken serious measures to make sure that this activity is arrested, number one. And the ministry has no hand with the illegal trade in timber. In fact, if anything, the minister is making sure that we are going after the culprits and taking them to court. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, we have a whole bunch of cases in the Brikama Magistrates Courts, of illegal timber that have been seized either along the way or in containers that went all the way inside the port.
The postponing of the COP26 due to the coronavirus gave countries more time to formulate a new or updated NDC, which should have been submitted in 2020. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jenna Bosonko.
A sustainable waste management project costing over $42 million aimed at, among other things, reducing child rights violation in Bakote dump site was launched on Tuesday by SOS Children Village, the Gambia through Herena Fonds Dutchland in partnership with the KMC. Omar Pijalo was at the launching and he has the rest of that story.
This is a 2-year project jointly funded by the German Federal Ministry of Economics, Cooperation and Development and the Kanifing Municipal Council. The project, which aims to protect children and families in the neighborhood of Bakote dump site from health, environmental and economic risk, will directly benefit 200 families and 1,000 children in Bakote, Manjai and Dipakunda. At the launch, the project coordinator Mohammed Hassan Loom said the project is expected to contribute to the improvement of the infrastructure at the dump site, including the construction of 2 access roads, an open set for waste segregation, sanitation facilities and capacity building to train dump site staff and waste pickers in the relevant knowledge and provide them with the tools to properly manage the site, as well as prevent and control fires and improve livelihood.
This is not about Mohammed Loom sitting down and then choosing who I feel should be part of this project because they are very close to me. This is participatory. Those who deserve to benefit from the project would be selected as beneficiaries for the project.
The mayor of KMC, Talib Ahmed Ben Souda, said the dump site remains the KMC's biggest challenge in terms of waste management. He added that the council is committed to addressing this challenge by contributing over $4 million to the project.
The Council sees the project's activities as a perfect complement to Council's own capital investment of nearly $10 million in the construction of a 3.5-meter tall fence, which is already in progress. This is all in order to protect the children from entering the site and being exposed to its many hazards. It is important to note that the Council remains committed to its goal of closing the Bakote dump site and developing it into a transfer station.
The national coordinator of the SOS Children Villages in the Gambia, Maria Trusala, said since its establishment in 1982, the SOS Children Villages in the Gambia made a plea for the protection of the rights of children, which can only be achieved in a conducive environment, which should be created by the government and its partners.
Guided by the spirit of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the Gambia Children's Act 2005, SOS Children's Villages The Gambia advocates for the rights of children and believes that a child's development is best achieved in a conducive environment. Assuring the well-being of children, we support caring parents and caregivers. This is achieved through cooperation and advocacy involving communities, authorities, and various partners.
The Minister for Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Fatou Kinte, said government through her ministry is committed to the protection of the rights of children as enshrined in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child.
At the time that the domicile was founded, there were no inhabitants around this area. But through population growth, people have moved, and now the domicile is the central of the community. Work that needs to be done now is to make sure that we manage it well so that it no longer becomes a health and an environmental hazard.
Kaniso, a student at SOS, thanked the German government and KMC for putting them at the center of this project. The 18-hectare backward dump site is located in a former quarry and is causing health and environmental hazard to nearby communities because of the uncontrolled nature of dumping waste and the frequent fire outbreaks at the site. Reporting for Qtv News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
A 30-year-old man residing in Lamin is seeking medical assistance for overseas treatment. Alassane Jaju is diagnosed with end-stage renal disease, according to a medical report issued by the Edward Francis Moore Teaching Hospital in Banjul. Bob Karsisa tells us more.
The kidneys are a pair of bean-shaped organs on either side of your spine, below the ribs and behind your belly. The kidneys may be small, but they perform many vital functions that help maintain our overall health, including filtering waste and excess fluids from the blood. Serious kidney disease may lead to complete kidney failure and the need for dialysis treatment or a kidney transplant to stay alive. This is the disease that Alassane Jaju, a native of Kanilai, residing in Lamen and a teacher at Talending Upper Basic School, has been battling with since 2019.
I had a very severe stomach pain. So I went to the hospital to check what is wrong with me. But during that time, they didn't tell me anything. So later on, I went back to the village to my mom. From there, my mom took me to Casamas. So I was using these local herbs. But still now, the situation got worse. And I came back to Kanilai. From there, the following day, we went to Biam General Hospital. So when we went there, we were there since in the morning till in the evening. And from there, they referred me to Banjul. They referred me to Edward Francis Teaching Hospital. They directed me to one doctor, that's Dr. Rodriguez. Then he came, then took my blood sample, then do some lab tests. Then from there, he told me that I got kidney failure.
The major causes of kidney disease are high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney stones, overuse of some over-the-counter painkillers, and using drugs such as heroin, amongst others. People with kidney failure may experience nausea, vomiting, weakness, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and loss of appetite, amongst others. Alassane's brother, Ismail Abaji, is devastated and calls for help to save his brother's life.
I feel so bad. Because sometimes vomiting, when he starts vomiting here, even to eat is not easy. Sometimes we have to change diets at home so that he can able to eat. Because normally at night dinner he don't take rice. That one, if he take rice, we will have a problem. Really, we need help. Right now he need to have treatment outside, because here I don't think they can do it. That's why he have to go outside for treatment. That's what the doctors advise.
Alassane has stage 5 chronic kidney disease called end-stage renal disease. This occurs when about 90% of the kidney's function has been lost, and eventually dialysis or a kidney transplant is needed to stay alive.
A young man like me who should be serving the nation, I'm now lying here. buying a coming here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So things are really hard with me. Things are very tough with me here. I'm calling on philanthropists, NGOs, civil organizations, government, individuals to come and help. Yeah, I'm in need of help. If in my catheter that I'm having here, it's having a problem. It's having a big problem, so I need urgent help.
Alassana's teaching career is now put on hold as he battles kidney failure. He desperately needs help to stay healthy and be productive in society. If anyone would like to assist him, please contact QTV by writing to news@qtv.gm. Babukar Sise, QTV News.
We will take a commercial break. Still to come, some international and sports news. Welcome back. This is QTV News. I am Maria Masane. In international news, America, the hardest hit country by the COVID-19 pandemic, has passed 500,000 COVID-related deaths, the highest number of any country. President Joe Biden calls it a truly heartbreaking milestone. Ali Sisa reports.
President Joe Biden addressed the nation to mark this figure and ordered all flags on federal property to be flown at half-mast for 5 days. Elsewhere in Washington, the bells at the National Cathedral tolled 500 times, one for every 1,000 Americans lost. In his address, Biden said the number of American deaths from the pandemic was higher than the deaths of previous world wars and the Vietnam War combined. Today, we mark a truly grim, heartbreaking milestone. As a nation, we can't accept such a cruel feat. We have to resist becoming numb to the sorrow, he said. Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and their spouses observed a moment of silence outside the White House during a candle-lighting ceremony. At the moment, the U.S. has 28.1 million confirmed cases, also a world record. Today, I ask all Americans to remember those we lost and remember those we left behind, said Biden as he called for Americans to fight COVID together. Biden's approach to the deadly virus is unlike his predecessor, Donald Trump, who doubted the impact of the COVID-19 and was seen as having politicized the wearing of face masks and other measures needed to prevent the spread of the virus. BBC reported that the Institute for Metrics and Evaluation projects at least 90,000 more Americans are expected to have died with the virus by 1st June. It adds that by late May this year, the virus will kill around 500 Americans per day, down from approximately 2,000 currently. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Cissé.
Deadly struck Niger's presidential elections on Sunday when 7 members of National Electoral Commission were killed when their car hit an explosive device. 3 others were severely injured in the explosion, which occurred in Goteyi village in the Tillaberi region in western part of the country. Yahya Jawo tells us more.
The electoral run-off is to choose a new president after the first round failed to produce a clear winner. Nigerians went to the polls on Sunday in the second round of the country's presidential election, expected to pave the way for Niger's first democratic transition of power since independence from France more than 6 decades ago. The vote was called after outgoing President Muhammadu Yusufu announced he was voluntarily stepping down after occupying the presidential seat for 2 5-year terms. President Muhammadu says he is proud to be the first democratically elected president in the country's history to be able to pass the baton to another democratically elected president as he cast his vote in the capital, Niamey. The 2 candidates vying to replace him are political stalwarts in the West African nation, which is one of the poorest in the world. Mohamed Bazoum, Yusufu's right-hand man, is widely seen as the favorite after winning 39.3% of the vote in the first round. He has vowed to continue Yusufu's policies with a focus on security and revamping the economy. He also has the backing of the candidates who came third and fourth in the first round. He is running against Muhammad Usmani, who was the country's first democratically elected president in 1993, only to be toppled in a coup after 3 years in office. He won 17% of the votes in the first round and has the endorsement of about a dozen smaller parties and candidates. He has vowed to implement change and tackle corruption if he returns to power. He, however, expressed concerns about electoral fraud as he called for citizen suffrage to be respected, saying he fears that any attempt to rig election results will end up in a situation that would be difficult to manage. Usmani appealed for a transparent election so that citizen voices can be heard, stressing that people are no longer willing to tolerate rigged elections. The Sahel nation has a population of nearly 24 million and still struggles with poverty, drought, floods, and 2 festering insurgencies. One of its few exports, uranium, has been hit by a drop in price in recent years, and the coronavirus pandemic also has an effect on the country's economy. Whoever assumes the presidency has a lot of work to do. Reporting for QTV News, I am Yahya Jao.
In sports news, the group stage of the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations is complete, with Group C, which is Gambia's group, the last to be completed. And the young Scorpions pulled off an exciting victory over Ghana to make it through to the last 8. Our sports reporter Mamadou Gajaga tells us more.
The young Scorpions responded well when it mattered most, securing a place in the last 8 of the tournament. They came from behind to beat Ghana's Black Satellites 2-1. Goals from Lamarana Jallo, named man of the match, and Kajali Drame were enough to see the young Scorpions finish second behind group winners Morocco on head-to-head performances. Abdul Fattah put Ghana in front after 8 minutes with a scintillating left-footed strike, before Kajali Drame levelled with a thumping header following Ibrahima Kamara's right-footed cross on the quarter hour. Lamarana Jallo gave the Gambia the lead with a delightful free kick, and that was how the sides went in at the break. Despite playing under intense pressure for much of the rest of the game, the young Scorpions held on. Coach Matar Mboj in his post-match press conference says his team had only one thing in mind, and that is to win.
I think my colleague has said it all. Anytime anyone sees the Ghanaian flag and you're an opponent, you know, these guys have won the U20 World Cup before, they've won the AFCON U20 numerous times. Believe you me, it's an honor to come up against this gentleman, because myself, my players, we have to give our best. There's no choice, and we knew we had to win the match. There was nothing else for us. A draw was not enough. So we had to raise our game. We had to do the work that we did on the training ground to come up and a huge opponent like the Ghanaians. We saw them in the first game, you know, but we still thought that there were some areas we could exploit. They came up against Morocco as well. We just analysed where we thought we could get the better of them. And as you say, I'm so proud of my boys, because they really delivered for me today.
Ghana coach Abdul Karim Zito says the most important thing for his side was to qualify, which they achieved.
He said something which, if you remember, any match against Ghana is no minnow. Everybody wants to play and beat Ghana. I don't take anything from Gambia. They did very, very well. We came all out to win. They also came out to win. At the end of the day, those who took their chances won. So I would say kudos to my fellow coach. But at the end of the day, what matters most is we've all qualified, and that is the most important thing. So me qualifying, I wanted to top the group, but I could not. But at the end of the day, I've qualified. That is what matters most. So
Gambia will face Central African Republic in Friday's late evening kickoff. Morocco will play Tunisia in the all-North African affair, while Cameroon battle with Ghana. Burkina Faso will play Uganda to complete the ties. Mamadou Gajaga, QTV News.
Before we end this QTV News, let's have a quick reminder of our main stories. Top officials from many of Gambia's political parties in Abuja, Nigeria, at the invitation of former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan. They are continuing efforts to revive the rejected draft constitution. Armed robbers allegedly made off with about $6.5 million following a raid on the staff of a bureau de change. A newborn baby has been found abandoned in a cassava farm. A sustainable waste management project costing over $42 million has been launched and aimed to address the long-term problems of the backwater dump site. In international news, American President Joe Biden bemoans a grim milestone as the country registers 500,000 COVID-19 related deaths. The runoff for Niger's presidential election, which will herald the country's first peaceful transfer of power, has been marred by violence. In sports news, at the Under-20 AFCON in Mauritania, Gambia's young Scorpions are victorious against Ghana to make it through to the knockout stages. That's all we have for you in this edition of the QTV News. Do stay tuned at 10 p.m. for another edition. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.